Lance Stephenson recently decided to leave the only home he's ever had in the NBA, taking the advice of his agent. Stephenson turned down the Pacers' 5-year, $44 million contract for a 3-year deal with the Charlotte Hornets. The deal only guarantees Stephenson 2 years and $18 million. According to USA Today Sports, it's a decision that has made no sense, especially to Larry Bird. Here's what the Pacers president had to say. I really feel bad about losing him. I hope it doesn't interfere with our relationship. But I did what I could possibly do to keep him here. Even if he didn't have any other offers, I was committed to giving him that $44 million because I believe in the kid. Right? Stephen A. Smith, how much do you blame Larry, if you blame him at all, for losing Stephenson?
I put most of the blame on the shoulders of Larry Bird.
Okay.
Larry Bird is a 3-time champion, one of the greatest players to have ever played this game. He warrants all of our respect and deference in the world of basketball because of what he accomplished, what he meant to the game. He's one of the premier reasons why the NBA is as popular as it is today. And I want to make sure I'm clear about that. But at the same time, as an executive and the face of the Indiana Pacers franchise, it was incumbent upon him to keep a guy that he personally had faith in, built faith in, helped elevate his game, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if Lance Stephenson had left for $65 or $70 million, then it's not Larry Bird's fault because it's not his money that he's spending. But the fact that Lance Stephenson went someplace else for less, I'm talking about overall, even though it was a little bit more annually, like about $200,000. What Lance Stephenson was saying and the message that he validated by going to the Hornets was very, very simple. I am willing to bet on myself. I think I'm worth more than $44 million over 5 years. So if I want to do a 3-year deal, right, you should be able to do that for me. And to me, once that message was sent, Larry Bird should have found a way to keep him. Okay? Larry Bird should have been willing to pay. If he wanted 3 years, $35 million, you should have given that to him. You understand? So what? He's going to be in a position to re-up in 3 years. You are trying to compete for a championship now. LeBron James just left for Cleveland. You have an opportunity to claim the Eastern Conference because the big three are not in your face anymore. You've got to have the foresight to see that and to say, I'm going to sit there and snatch this while it can. Not to mention, Skip, and I'm not knocking the players for this because they're young and they feel the way that they feel, but Paul George saying immediately after losing the series to Miami when asked if he wanted Lance Stephenson as a teammate next season, I don't know. And the players sort of distancing themselves from Stephenson because he may have frustrated them or whatever the case may be. It was incumbent upon Larry Bird to step up while the playoffs were going on and saying, look, I'm going to talk to the dude because there's things that I think he may need to do differently. But this is an incredibly important component for our franchise. He's a future of this franchise. We value him. He's incredibly valuable to us, and we don't want to lose him. I heard none of that from Larry Bird. And I'm not saying he didn't say it, but it wasn't bloated loud enough where it really resonated nationwide. We were speculating throughout the playoffs whether Lance Stephenson would be in Indiana or not and how much money he cost himself because of the antics of blowing in the air and all of this other stuff. We were questioning this stuff. Larry Bird could have put all of that to bed, and he didn't do it. And I dare say, it may have cost the Indiana Pacers a shot at the Eastern Conference crown. This is going to be a devastating blow to this team because Lance Stephenson, even with his theatrics, he can ball, and more importantly, he got a lot of heart, and he ain't scared, and he rises to the challenge. That's a devastating loss for the Pacers.
As you know, I'm a Bird fan as a player, as a coach, as a GM. But Larry Bird blew this. He lost Lance Stephenson by criticizing him after Game 5 of this past year's Eastern Conference Finals. And I want to point out, Larry Bird as a player, by all reports and accounts, might have been the greatest trash talker in the history of this league.
That's right. He got Dr. J to punch him in the face. The peaceful Julius Dr. J. Irvin to punch him in the face.
I'll never forget it. Again, I was covering the Dallas Mavericks when Mark Aguirre was a star. Do you know Mark?
Yes.
A little before your time.
I know Mark Aguirre very well.
Yeah. Mark Aguirre told me after one game in Boston, Larry Bird psychologically destroyed him, especially when the ball was dead, when he'd lean over to him and whisper something to him. You ain't, you know what?
Right.
And watch what I'm about to do to you.
Yikes.
And, okay, this is the guy. So that was covert. Lance was overt. And what happened with his overt antics in Game 5? What happened to LeBron James in Game 5 of that series? Whether you want to credit Lance or not,
sure.
LeBron goes for 7 points on 2 of 10 shooting, and he had obviously the fouls, and they're all questionable, some of them were questionable. But the point is, he got LeBron off his game. However he did it, he did it. He was your only hope to win Game 6. And what happened in Game 6? After Larry Bird pulled Lance aside during a practice after Game 5 and told him, stop it, quit it. You're embarrassing us. No, you're not. You're not embarrassing them. No, you're giving them the only chance they have.
Right.
You're giving them, as Michael Jordan just said about the player he just signed, some edge. It gave them edge that Paul George didn't give them. Yet Larry Bird said in these remarks, were they to Bob Kravitz? And
he just essentially said he hopes he doesn't ruin the relationship.
Did you read this quote from Larry Bird? He said, when he used to go to practice, when Lance was on, he was by far our best player, and he worked. He was by far your best player. There was this other guy named Paul George that was an MVP candidate for about half a year.
Yep.
And keep in mind that it was easier to lose Danny Granger, not just because of Paul George, but because of Lance Stephenson.
Right. So why would Larry Bird criticize Lance? Why would he burn some of that bridge that he had built to that kid? And he's still a kid to me. And he is a wildly talented young man. He's got some issues, but I like most of them. And he said that Michael told him, you got to calm it down a little, but I love your edge.
Yeah.
Okay, good for you. It was a great signing for Michael Jordan, whose team is on the rise.
Can I say something? Larry Bird, in this particular instance, I'm not going to generalize and character assassinate him or anything like that, because I have too much respect for him. But on this particular issue, Larry Bird was lazy. It's just that simple. And here's why. It's your job as an executive to some degree to manage the players, especially when you're Larry Bird. Especially when you're Larry Bird. And the fact that you have a former president of basketball operations in Donnie Walsh in your staple, and a former GM in Kevin Pritchard in your staple. You've got guys that are perfectly capable of handling all the other nuances that go along with being an executive. As the president, as the face of this franchise, you being Larry Bird, excuse me, you are covered with subordinates or colleagues and contemporaries who are capable of doing your job, who have shown they can do it for decades, which gives you the wiggle room and the time to allot yourself to go and talk to and school these boys. So this is about Michael Jordan. Understand something about Michael Jordan. For better or worse, and Charlotte is on a rise. And my brother Michael Jordan's doing a hell of a job right now. He is a struggle.
It took a while.
He's making a lot of good decisions. And I'm pleased with what I'm seeing from Charlotte, okay? But let me be clear. Michael Jordan may have been wrong from time to time. But what he never was lazy. Now, he don't want to be a dog and pony show trying to go out there and pump and be the marketing dude to sell his franchise. That's not how he rolls. Michael Jordan is different than that. And nobody's saying that Bird should have done that any more than somebody saying Michael should do it. But what Michael does is Michael will talk to players. Michael will get in their face. And if necessary, Michael will put on a jersey and go out on the court and try to school them if he has to. And what I'm saying is, I don't see stuff like that from Larry Bird. And you bring up the point, Larry Bird talking smack, one of the greatest smack talkers. That makes it even more unforgivable that he lost Lance Stephenson. Because if it wasn't for those antics by Lance, would we have been talking about him leaving Indiana at any point? Not at all. So you got caught up in the blitz that the media was with. And even though I said I didn't like what I was seeing from Lance Stephenson from time to time, I also went on the record saying it was completely overblown. The dude didn't commit a crime. He's trying trying something because nothing else has worked against LeBron and those boys. I might as well try something.
Why not?
People are treating him like, like the kid is a problem child. Why? Because you're getting on the court and you're trying to play mind and psychological games because nothing else has worked. It didn't work. But why not try?
Well, it worked in Game 5, I thought.
I'm just saying that Lance Stephenson's upside is incredibly more significant than his downside. I think that people used it as an opportunity to knock him down. Larry Bird got caught up all in the mix, and as a result, he lost one of his better players and may have cost himself an Eastern Conference crown.
Yeah, I don't know if I go along with the word lazy. I don't know if
what I'm saying
he
is
was remiss in his.
No, I'm saying you got to skip part of your Larry Bird. You got to work that. You got to work that. You got to, whether it's massaging the ego, getting on him, doing whatever it is that you're going to do. I guarantee you that Michael Jordan is going to be having, at least every other day, he's going to be talking to Lance Stephenson. Because understand, if Lance Stephenson does what we know he's capable of doing with Kemba Walker, with Al Jefferson, I'm sorry, look out. Charlotte's coming. So to me, again, Michael Jordan's going to see that, see the value, and then while he's reeling Lance in, he's also going to, he's not going to sit there and tell Lance to change. He's going to sit there and say, hey, here's how you can utilize this to your advantage. He's going to teach him some things. I'm saying Larry Bird could have done the same thing because to me, had he done it to that degree, Lance Stephenson doesn't leave. And you don't let those other players give any kind of indication that they could take him or leave him. As a teammate, excuse me? Roy Hibbert. I like Roy Hibbert. Genuinely, I like Roy Hibbert. Boy, I don't know how more awful you can be than that boy was in some instance. I mean, there was, 4 games when he was scoreless? You're 7'2". You don't shoot. You shoot from 5 feet and in. You're 7 feet 2. If you tick up your arms without jumping, you can touch the rim, and you win 4 games without scoring a point. That's just horrid. So to me, you got stuff like that on your team, you can't let somebody talk about Lance Stephenson that way. And that's what they did.
On a lighter note, you were at the ESPYs. How'd you feel about the Lance cam?
The what?
The Lance cam when they were blowing. You
know what? When him and Drake was blowing, it was funny. It really was. And Paul George was a good sport too. I thought Drake was hilarious personally.
Great. He was really
And
good.
my favorite though was his skit with Blake Griffin.
What'd you think?
That was hysterical.
Siskel,
Put your face in a bowl of Cheetos.
To you.
Oh, okay.
It was hysterical.
I thought he was great. I
Drake
thought he
was
did a
great.
good job.
He's always great.
2 skits, him imitating Manny Pacquiao. That was hysterical too.
Tune in if you guys didn't see it.
Drake
I'm sure
is
they'll replay
talented.
it.
All I wanted him to do, he should have faked being asleep.
Oh.
Because that would have been
Lakers
similar
came
to
up
Manny
empty
Pacquiao.
in free agency, but Kobe says he's really happy.